Think of the profession as a vintage car getting a jet engine bolted to it. Private equity collided with partnership models and a fight for independence. An uncomfortable truth came out that 2025 was not a year of progress so much as it was a year of separation. The profession moved faster than most firms were structurally able to absorb. In 2025, the accounting profession didn't just change its tools, it changed its soul. Welcome to Accounting Voices. I'm Rob Brown. Over the past few weeks, culminating on mid-December last year, I interviewed 48 senior leaders in the accounting profession, asking them the same 5 questions. And I listened really carefully to the answers. We talked about what trended in 2025, not necessarily what tools were launched, but what actually shifted beneath the accounting profession. And people watch this show because they want to be informed. Whether you're in a firm, in a job, in a tech role, in a leadership role, in private equity, wherever it is, this show helps inform you about what's happening in the accounting world. Not news-wise, but the major shifts and disruptive trends. This project was ambitious. I started out just looking for 10 people. We brought 2 strategic partners on. Field Guide partnered with us, the leading agentic AI platform for audit and advisory firms. And Carbon 2 partnered with us, the global leader in AI-powered practice management software for accounting firms. They've got a really great Future of Accounting and AI report, which you should definitely check out. So I asked these 48 people in a series of 12-minute videos, and I gave them the questions in advance. And these were a blend of firm leaders, consultants, podcasters, media people, influencers, tech experts. The same 5 questions. Question 1 was, what defined 2025? Question 2, and let's not pretend that it was a really great year for accounting and everything was fine and dandy and everybody's happy. I asked them what disappointed, challenged, frustrated you about the last year. Question 3, I asked them what they changed their mind on. Not necessarily done on 180, but what influenced their thinking the most. Question 4, I asked them what skills, attributes they felt leaders needed to adopt or upgrade on to stay relevant in 2026. And question 5 was a prediction that they felt pretty sure was going to happen this year. And in the next 5 episodes of Accounting Voices here on all podcast channels and on our YouTube channel, which is growing by the day, I am going to give you the answers. They've all gone into Google Notebook LM and through ChatGPT and everything else, because you can imagine this is a huge body of work. Asking 48 people the same question, you get a lot of different themes and answers. So in this episode, I want to go through question 1 with you and what we found. Because when we asked people what defines the year, an uncomfortable truth came out. That 2025 was not a year of progress so much as it was a year of separation. Because while many accounting firms were still navigating change, a smaller group was starting to operationalize change and adapt very quickly. But that gap was huge, the velocity gap as it's being called. And it's defining a kind of a fault line in accounting. So when I asked 48 people what most defined 2025, nobody talked about a specific tax update. Nobody talked about regulation. What they described instead was, and this is my word, not theirs, collision. AI collided with outdated processes and legacy software. Private equity collided with partnership models and a fight for independence. Speed and automation collided with governance, healthy, intimate client relationships. Ambition collided with capacity on talent and technology. So it was difficult. And if there's one phrase that captures this year, it's this. The profession moved faster than most firms were structurally able to absorb. We could put culturally able to absorb in there as well. So let's go through this in a little bit more detail because you need to stay informed and relevant. And they say if you want to know what's coming up, look at the past. So I'm going to pick out a few quotes here because the first and loudest signal obviously was AI, how it had shaped the year. Benjamin Allari from Blue Jay, he described what many leaders experienced when he said, we saw an evolution from AI curiosity or AI hype into genuine AI reliance. And that shift mattered because curiosity is optional, but reliance is not. Jeff Seibert from Digits put it more plainly. He said 2025 was the year AI became real in accounting. And it was actually Calvin Harris from the New York State Society. He said AI is the new Excel. And that really resonated with me because that happens in a lot of conversations. It's become the norm now. And these kind of comparisons matter because take Excel, for instance. It didn't succeed because accountants loved technology. It succeeded because it became embedded. It was invisible infrastructure. It was expected. It was there. It was assumed. It worked. Jin Chang from Field Guide, again, sponsoring us, he reinforced this. He said, digital audits are no longer enough. It's about the AI native experiences now. And they've got a really good AI maturity framework that you should take a look at Field Guide. So this combination tells us that something important is going on. AI in 2025 stopped being a differentiator and it started to become a baseline expectation for accounting firms. Firms without AI are no longer cautious or ignorant, they're just exposed. The second driving force was private equity. Randy Johnston, so famous, such a godfather of the accounting and tech world, he noted that the amount of spend by private equity has changed the market radically. And that's not just described by Randy as a temporary disruption. He described it as a permanent condition. Gail Crosley, strategic growth advisor for technology companies and advisory firms, she reinforced this when she said, private equity is not going away. It's like everyone wants to own a CPA firm. That's the reality of it. Sagar Ahuja from QX Global captured the shift succinctly when he said that 2025 was a consolidation year. And what classified the year was this: capital has speed. We know that. We talk about big injections of capital into firms and what it allows them to do. Partnerships have process. And when capital enters the profession built on consensus, the system strains. A profession built on process and consensus has certain ways of operating. But you put money, massive capital into that, something breaks and the strain becomes unavoidable with one specific moment that came out in a couple of conversations. The Grant Thornton acquisition was a watershed moment. Bob Lewis said this. He said that this cemented the outside investment as a reality for everyone. So if you did catch that news story, go back to it because it was a game changer. So from that point on, the private equity conversation was no longer something firms could entertain from a distance. It became part of the operating environment for the entire profession. Most of the big firms involved in PE conversations have already done that, and that's going right down the food chain. And whether it's private equity or merging or consolidating, acquiring, it's happening right across. And that forced a deeper reckoning around independence. Ed Kless, who runs a great podcast with Ron Baker and runs Verisage, he said, the uncomfortable truth behind many PE conversations is that firms are turning to private equity because they've realized, crap, we've got a lot of partners to pay who are retiring and we don't have the cash to do it. That was Ed Kless's words. Independence in 2025, it stopped being the default state and it started to become a strategic choice, because if you and your firm want to stay independent, that's a real fight that you've got on your hands. And that's a fight that now requires explicit reinvestment, succession planning, and operational discipline. The third defining shift was a quieter but more destabilizing one, and it was an identity crisis. Chelsea Summers, who I'm honored to host the Inside Public Accounting podcast with, said the profession is not just evolving, it's really changing its identity. Firms are blending technology, consulting, data engineering, ways that blur what a traditional accounting firm looks like. That's really insightful. Matt Rampe agreed. He said calling the shift structurally disruptive is an understatement, and he notes that it's fundamentally changing our identity as an accounting firm. That's at Rosenberg. So these things matter because strategy cannot hold when identity becomes unclear. In the last few episodes of Accounting Voices, I've talked about the different directions firms seem to be going in, and it's difficult for your firm to go in all directions at once. So firms that cannot articulate what they're becoming, they struggle to align their leadership, to attract their talent, to communicate value to clients. The fourth thing that came out produced the most frustration. When I asked what defined 2025, many people talked in one way or another about how technology is colliding with process. Karina Creedon was unequivocal when she said, you cannot put bad processes or unprepared teams into good technology. It's just a waste of resources. Chelsea Summers mentioned it before. She offered an image that landed instantly with a lot of leaders. She said, putting a new engine in an old car doesn't make it run better if you don't redesign the systems around it. Look, 2025 exposed some hard truths, particularly with technology, that it doesn't fix organizational design, and AI doesn't compensate for broken workflows, and automation doesn't repair unclear leadership or bad culture. So buying up these tools without redesigning how work actually flows, it accelerates dysfunction and creates technical debt. You can look that one up. The fifth defining pressure that came out when I asked people about what characterized 2025 was talent. Dal Petrick, he of Bowman, really great firm, doing some incredible things. He gave the most visceral description of the year when he said the workload and complexity feel like a boa constrictor coming around us, making it tighter and squeezing us more and more. Brandon Poe Advisors, amazing conversation. He reframed the pressure when he said that talent shortages will continue to make firms better because it's forcing firms to confront toxic cultures and a lack of purpose that they've ignored for decades. The sun's not shining anymore. When the sun's shining, everybody can make money and everyone does well. And when the clouds go and the storms come, that's when your firm culture and processes, technology, everything's put under the microscope. So talent in 2025 stopped being a HR issue. It became a primary force reshaping firm design, leadership behavior, strategic priorities. And running quietly through all of this to bring this to a close was an uncomfortable thread that despite the technology, despite the capital, despite the urgency, many firms are still not focused on the client. Despite their websites and their values saying that they are. Randy Johnson pointed out that a lack of focus on clients happens because firms get overwhelmed with multiple pressures and are frankly just not getting there with high-value advisory. There is a real danger of the velocity gap. Firms moving fast without redesigning themselves, recalibrating, and not becoming better. They're just becoming louder and they're going to fail faster. So to understand 2025 and what might be coming up in this year, think of the profession as a vintage car getting a jet engine bolted to it. AI added the power, private equity added the speed, but the chassis and the culture, the leadership mindset were never rebuilt in the car. And there's another way to think about it. The accounting profession today is like a traditional library being converted into a high-speed data center. Think of the way accounting has developed over the years. It's slow. Double entry bookkeeping has been what it is. Excel spreadsheets change things, cloud and digital change things, but it's ostensibly been the same. We still have the books, the core knowledge, the ethics, the trust, but the architecture has fundamentally changed and the speed of access has changed. And the way people interact with that knowledge has been almost entirely rebuilt. And you can't run a data center using library protocols. So 2025 was the year, it sounds dramatic, but the year the profession stopped trying and started to rely more on tech and AI and private equity to do the heavy lifting. Now, there's nothing wrong with that in itself, but a lot of people say that the accounting profession has a brand or image problem. Maybe it's in firms. If we don't redesign the framing, the whole thing shakes itself apart at a very high velocity. The huge amount of change and disruption that's coming through the pipeline now, it's going to be massive. And if the profession is not willing to change and adapt, it's really going to struggle. In 2025, the accounting profession didn't just change its tools, it changed its soul. It sounds spiritual in a way, doesn't it? But the question for 2026 is not whether you adopt more technology or attract more capital. It's whether you're building a new vehicle or desperately trying to keep the old one from rattling to pieces. That's my analogy for this episode. This is Accounting Voices. I'm Rob Brown. I hope you've enjoyed this first in a five-parter where we asked 48 key influencers in the accounting world the same 5 questions. We talked over what defined 2025. On the next episode, I'm going to talk about question 2, which I asked them all, which was what frustrated, challenged, or maybe even disappointed you most in the last 12 months. But coming up to that, tune in on YouTube, on all of the podcast channels, and reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to talk some more. Have a great day and keep on improving.